Back on HQ with some breaking news. We've got schedules. Let's play two. An opening day doubleheader come July 23rd. It's going to be a West Coast rivalry renewed between the Giants and the National League favorite Dodgers. And then in the nightcap, two of the game's most dominant arms will likely toe the bump when reigning world champion Nationals lace them up against the Yanks. Can't wait. Get me there now. All right, here to dig deeper into opening day and beyond, CBS Sports MLB insider Jim Bowden and our guy Will Middlebrooks, both champions in their own right, and a race for a ring going to begin in less than 3 weeks, guys. Let's begin on opening day. Obviously, some justified concern in the interim, but Jim, we're hoping to get that marquee matchup of Scherzer and Cole in Game 1 or Game 2 of 1800. I mean, is there any better way to say welcome back baseball than that game right there?
There's not a better way. Why? Well, the Yankees right now are going to be my favorites and most people's favorites to win the World Series in 2020. And they're going to be playing the world champion Washington Nationals, who on that opening night are going to raise the World Championship banner for Yankee fans to watch. I mean, what drama. And then, as you mentioned, Garrett Cole last year led the American League with 326 strikeouts. He led the American League in ERA and fielding independent pitching as well. This guy's finished top 5 Cy Young 3 times. And against Max Scherzer, who last year led all NL pitchers with 12.7 strikeouts per 9, including fielding independent pitching of 2.45. Can't ask for a better pitching matchup. Can't ask for a better team matchup than these two teams. I have goosebumps just thinking about it.
Maybe not the same level of competition in the other matchup that we're going to get in this Yankees-Nats game, but the rivalry lives on regardless. The Dodgers and the Giants going to get their divisional schedules underway against one another. It is an even year, so one way or the other, the Giants maybe a little bit of hope there. I don't know. I'm grasping at straws here. One's the favorite in the division, the other one boasting the longest odds in the division, but who knows? 60-game sprint. What are we hoping to see in this one?
Well, for me, there's no Madison Bumgarner, so it's going to be really sad not to see that. We're so used to Kershaw Bumgarner when these two teams go at each other. Look, we have a very aging team in San Francisco. They're going to be challenged. This is a team that's really going to only have Cueto and Samardzija at the top of the rotation. Then it's going to be a lot of bullpenning to win ball games. We still don't know if Buster Posey's going to opt out or not for San Francisco. And really, it looks extremely lopsided. As great a rivalry as this has been over the years, you're talking about, in my opinion, the worst team in the division against the best team in the division. But how fun will it be just to see Mookie Betts wearing that Dodger uniform for the first time? That'll be exciting to watch that for sure.
They are sights we have not yet been privy to, and we look forward to them all. But a really intriguing angle here is that a third of each of these team schedules is going to come against an interleague opponent. When you look at those potential matchups, Will, is there a series or two that you have earmarked as must-see TV right now?
100%. It's got to be the Subway Series. Like, I got the Yankees tagged as the best team in baseball, and I picked the Mets to shock the world and win the NL East this year. I mean, think about it. You got Cole, DeGrom, you got Aaron Judge facing off with the polar bear and Pete Alonso, and you got two really loyal fan bases that get to talk trash. Families divided. This is going to be really good for the game. It's good for the fans in a year that's really tough for fandom.
Okay, and for me, circle the date, guys. September 12th, get ready, because that is when the Houston Astros are going to Dodger Stadium. Whether there's fans or no fans, this is a rematch of the 2017 World Series. There is a lot of bitterness about the cheating scandal that involved the Houston Astros. Astros at Dodgers, oh boy, is that going to be a series? I've got that circled. And oh, by the way, I'm looking forward to White Sox Reds, two teams that normally probably wouldn't have a chance to win the division or get a wild card if we were playing 162 games. But in the 60-game sprint, both of these teams with a chance to see October baseball, and them matching up against each other, I think it's going to be very, very exciting.
The first NFL Sunday does come the day after that Dodgers-Astros Game 1, so perhaps we won't have to wait for some contact sports. Who knows? I'm not going to sit here and poke holes in the thing because baseball's baseball at this point, but we'd be lying if we didn't mention the things that are in the way. It's not a leveled playing field at all. Jim, who's benefiting most from the format and the scheduling right now?
Well, it's the Central and West teams. They're going to have a major advantage in the wild card. I want you to think about this if you're an Eastern Division team and all your games are going to be in the East. National League pitchers last year, 7 of the top 10 strikeout leaders in all of baseball came from the East. 4 of the 5 top ERA pitchers last year came from the East. You don't want to be in the East. And how about all the teams in the Central and the West? You don't have to worry about the Yankees or the Rays or the Nationals or the Braves or the Phillies or the Mets on the schedule. So if you're in a wild card race, you have a huge advantage being in the Central or Western divisions of either league.
Will, you like a team out of Chicago as well you got your eye on when you're looking at the possible beneficiaries of this truncated season?
Absolutely. It's the Chicago White Sox. We know they're in a division with the Indians and with the Twins, who are probably going to be atop that division. But this is a young White Sox team, up and coming. They get to go play 10 games against the Detroit Tigers, 10 games against the Royals, and they have 4 games against the Pittsburgh Pirates. All 3 teams are projecting 20 to 25 wins, and I would pick the under, honestly. Do I think this is going to be enough to get them atop the division? No, I don't. But I think it keeps them in the mix, gives us some confidence going into next season.
Well, flip side of that coin, as there always is, a few clubs going to end up on the short end of the stick scheduling-wise. Will, in your eyes, who's coming up behind the 8 ball in this thing as we get started here in a few weeks?
I'm going to go with Tampa Bay, and it all has to do with travel. You know, they have 2.5, 3-hour flight to the Northeast to play most of the teams in their division. That's an advantage for the Bostons, the New Yorks, when they're an hour flight, or they can take a train if they'd like to. But Tampa, to put this in perspective, a normal person would say, oh, 3-hour flight, it's nothing. They can kick back, read a book, listen to music. They have a game at 7 o'clock, all right? It's done at 10:15. They're lucky to be on the airplane by midnight, get in by 3:30, get to bed by 4:30, and then they got to do it again the next day. That takes a toll on the position players, the guys that are on the field every day, and it's definitely a disadvantage for Tampa.
Jim, you've got a whole division circled as playing an uphill battle. Where would that be?
Yeah, I mean, the NL East, I mean, look, they're all going to get hurt here because they got to play each other. I mean, if you're sitting there, in particular the Braves, Phillies, and Mets, and I'm going to avoid the Nationals here only because they get 6 games against the Baltimore Orioles because that's their so-called rival. So I'm going to take them out of the equation. But Atlanta, Philadelphia, and the Mets, I mean, when you have to sit there and have to face Scherzer, Strasburg, Corbin, you got to face DeGrom, Nola, and then your interleague games, you got to face the Yankees rotation led by Garrett Cole, and then you got to face the 3 Cy Young candidates of Tampa Bay, Snell and Morton and Glasnow, and you're going to try to get into the wild card. I mean, over 162 games, normal schedule. I would have told you that I think both wild card teams will come from the NL East, but now I don't know, maybe one if you're lucky, and that's it. This is a huge advantage for the NL Central and West wildcard teams. Teams like Arizona, San Diego, St. Louis, the Cubs, Reds, Brewers, all of those teams, much better chance to win because of this schedule that was just dropped.
Yeah, no days off out there in the East. A lot of talented baseball, a lot of talented baseball players. And as we said, baseball coming our way in the not too distant future. But Jim, I'd be remiss if we didn't touch upon the hurdles between now and then. You've got multiple clubs coming out saying they're not comfortable with the way things are being run right now. Test results are delayed all over the place. Multiple practices were canceled on Monday. Jim, will these coronavirus issues remain the top storyline throughout this entirety of the season?
Yeah, I think it's going to, unfortunately, because I think based on what we're seeing in society and already in baseball, the story is going to be COVID-19 coronavirus, and it's going to be testing. It's going to be players that get positive tests. It's going to be missed tests. It's going to be, cancellation of events. It's going to be roster problems if all of a sudden 4 or 5 guys on the same team get it. This is going to be the biggest storyline of 2020. It's not going to go away. And baseball has to fix this initial problem. I mean, sure, teams like the Dodgers, Yankees, and Mets have not had a problem. They've had their tests on time. They've gotten the results. But when you see teams like the Nationals and the Astros and the Angels either canceling their workouts on Monday or in other cases having to do their own tests because the guy didn't show up, that's unacceptable. If we're going to play this, we've got to make sure the testing is proper, and when it's not, it'll be the lead story.
Jim, I want to dig a little bit deeper there because, you know, we talk about a missed practice or a canceled practice. Doesn't sound like the biggest thing in the world, but when your training camp is only a week long, 10 days long, how important are these days leading up to first pitch on July 23rd?
I mean, this is huge. The Oakland Athletics haven't even had their position players on the field because of this. And so, yeah, it's an unfair advantage for the teams that aren't having these hiccups, the teams that are on the field, because every day is precious. Remember this. 3 weeks of spring training is not enough anyway, okay? The pitchers are going to be way ahead of the hitters when we break camp and get ready to go. And then you're going to miss an occasional day here or there because of testing. That's going to set those teams back and give an advantage to the teams that don't have those kind of hiccups. And, you know, and by the way, if you start having 4 or 5 more days like this, they would have to try to push back the season and redo the schedule, which I know they don't want to do. So every day is critical, and these early problems that they're having with the testings better get resolved quickly, or we're not going to have a 2020 season.
Will, as a former player, a lot of guys are struggling with this decision right now as they do see some bigger names opting out of the 2020 season. Put yourself back in that position. I know it's not one with precedent, not one you've been in before, but what are these guys wrestling with right now? I mean, you hear guys like Mike Trout mulling over whether or not they want to take part in the season. Do you expect to hear more big-name players come out in the next 3 weeks and say, not for me?
The way it's looking and the way things are going so far, yeah, I do. And I think the biggest thing has to do with your immediate family, your children, your wife, your mother and father. I mean, it's more than about yourself. So I think the younger players, and I can say this, when I got to the big leagues when I was 23 and I was invincible, nothing could hurt me, right? Even if these guys get coronavirus, they're most likely going to be okay. Now, it's the older generation of players that are worried about infecting their children, newborns, pregnant wives, as we see with Mike Trout, and then what Chris Bryant came out and said today with, look, I'm starting to get really uncomfortable with this. So if players are starting to speak out about this, I would not be surprised to see more drop out.
All right, I want to go out on a smile here. All right, we gotta give the people something positive. So, Will, take us somewhere non-COVID related. What's your top storyline coming into this season?
It's the New York Mets. Am I crazy? Am I losing my mind? Maybe. It could be the 2 young children at home.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.